Just look at Pac-Man. Look at him. He's a dork. He doesn't need any introduction, but if you've been under a rock for the past 40 years, Pac-Man was a maze arcade game released in 1980. The game was an instant success for the then small company Namco, who decided to make Pac-Man their mascot. Pac-Man was such a massive hit that Namco didn't waste any time to make any follow-ups. This led us to Miss Pac-Man, Pac-Man Plus, Super Pac-Man, Baby Pac-Man, Professor Pac-Man, Pac-and-Pow, Junior Pac-Man, Pac-Land, Pac-Mania, Pac-Man Arrangement, Pac-Man VR. What? VR? There was VR in 1996? Huh. Yeah, there's a million Pac-Man games to be found in the series library. The character definitely stood the test of time with all the newer games and spin-offs Pac-Man keeps getting to this day. His fame lasted all the way into the 90s as there were a few spin-off games made for 4th gen systems, stuff like Pac-Man 2 and Pac-in-Time. They also made a game called Pac-Attack. I never played it, but that name sounds fucking awesome. Eventually, the 5th generation of video game systems arrived. The time of the N64, the PlayStation 1, the overly priced 3DO, whatever the hell the Atari Jaguar was, and some paperweight called the Sega Saturn. With Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, and eventually Sonic Adventure bringing the world of 3D gaming into the limelight, it was pretty clear that the famed arcade character was going to make the big leap into the 3rd dimension as well. Pac-Man's leap into 3D took some time to happen. Eventually, in late 1999, right near the series' 20th anniversary, Namco released the first ever 3D Pac-Man game. Initially titled Pac-Man 3D, yeah, that sounds super generic, we got Pac-Man World, released for the PS1, and a handheld version made later on for the GBA. I'm going to be focusing on the PS1 version in this video because it's the only version I care about. The game's available on the PlayStation Network store for just $6, like most PS1 games, so it's pretty easily obtainable nowadays. Also, according to the Pac-Man Wiki, I know, the best of all sources, apparently the game was gonna be ported to the N64, Dreamcast, and PC, but these versions got cancelled for some reason. The wiki also claims there was a PC version released exclusively in South Korea sometime in 2001, but I can't find any actual proof of this. Back to the PS1, Pac-Man World. Here we go. Check it out. This game has a widescreen option. Hell yeah. It looks alright. About as good as a widescreen PS1 game can look. The FMVs are stretched out though, so it's not perfect. I could fix them in editing, but it still looks pretty bad. The plot involves a robot Pac-Man named Talkman, who orders the ghost to kidnap all of Pac-Man's friends and family. So Pac-Man heads out to save everyone and beat Talkman. That's pretty much it. You gotta love these old compressed FMVs and the cheesy voice acting. It feels so nostalgic looking at these. Anyways, let's talk about the gameplay. Pac-Man World marked the first ever time Pac-Man was playable in 3D. The controls are pretty decent. You control Pac-Man using the D-pad, but this game does have analog support, so you can use both the left and right sticks to move Pac-Man. Yeah, if you wanted to, you can use the right stick of all things to move Pac-Man. The analog controls are pretty alright, but they're not the most precise way of controlling Pac-Man. Unsurprisingly, to me at least, using the D-pad actually feels way better. Strange how this is always a decent option for most 3D PS1 games. So what exactly can Pac-Man do against enemies besides run away from them like usual? Well, Pac-Man was given a few new moves. The main one I always use is a bounce attack by pressing the jump button a bunch of times. You can use it to bounce on top of enemies and reach higher platforms and levels. You can even use it to bounce up some slopes, which is kinda broken, at least for a few levels later on in the game. Pac-Man also has a dash move. Holding square makes Pac-Man start to rev up, and letting go can make him spin dash away. Yeah, nice try. You ain't slick, Pac-Man. Jokes aside, the rev and dash is pretty useful in most levels, mainly for going up slopes or going off ramps. The last move Pac-Man has is this power pellet shooting move. You can collect power pellets in levels and can use them to be thrown at enemies. Cool, huh? I rarely use this move. I mean, I did use it a couple times near the end, but I was mainly just bouncing on all enemies, and that seemed to work just fine. Pac-Man also has a few power-ups, like a Metal Pac-Man and a Slam Power Pac-Man type of move. Metal Pac-Man makes Pac-Man invincible and can make him sink in water segments. The slam power is incredibly rare and I only recall using it once. I like the metal Pac-Man power-up, but every time I use it, I can't help but think of... The levels in Pac-Man World are pretty straightforward and linear platforming stages. Throughout the levels, you'll come across these power pellets sections where you can chase ghosts in 3D. Good old Pac-Man action. There are also fruits you can pick up in levels. These can be used to unlock specially marked doors, which can give you bonus points and or items that can actually help you later on. There's this Galaxian you can pick up, and behind the Galaxian door, you'll get transported into a maze. I don't like these. They are good, classic Pac-Man fun, but I always skip these doors whenever I do collect a Galaxian. I just don't have too much fun in these mazes. And you have to beat them. You can't exit them whenever you want. They also use up lives. Cool. This little design oversight is also the main reason I hate the mazes. Like, don't punish us by taking away our actual lives. These mazes can be so difficult and unfair, especially if you're bad at classic Pac-Man, like me. Maybe that's why I don't like these mazes. Yeah, I'm moving on. Taking a note from Donkey Kong Country, there are these letters and levels you can collect that spell out Pac-Man, which is cute. Much like in DKC, whenever I find a specific letter in a certain point of the level, I'm always like, oh sweet, an M, I'm halfway done with this level. Guess I should talk about the 6 different worlds in the game, and their subsequent boss fights. Even though it's called Pac-Man World, we actually have multiple worlds in the game. Huh. You'd think that they would have called this game Pac-Man Worlds? Anyways, the first world we go to is a pirate-themed world. Nothing too special about this level, but it is a decent first world and a nice little introduction to the game. I love the sound effect you hear when Pac-Man gets hurt. It's actually a millisecond of his death sound from the arcade game. That's cute. Then we get our first boss. The bosses in this game can range from pretty easy to fucking bullshit. The first boss is a pirate ship. You have to knock cannonballs back at them, and boom, they're dead. Not too difficult, so not a bad first boss. We then move on to World 2, which is a cavern world of sorts. The atmosphere here is nice, albeit incredibly dark, but I like the way the PS1 lava looks. I just love these old school polygonal graphics. This is also the only world in the game to have 3 levels. Every other world has at least 4 levels each, except this one. Kinda odd. Also, why are these spider enemies making chicken sounds? The second boss is a giant mummy statue thingy, and this boss sucks. God, it's so infuriating. You have to time jumps and other parts of this boss fight just right, otherwise you're dead. This is hands down the worst boss in the game. I know I didn't really describe what exactly you're supposed to do. Like, first you're running away from him, then the second phase you're platforming and trying to open this thing so you can go hit him. But I honestly don't care if I didn't describe this properly. I'm never playing this boss fight again. World 3, Space World. Yep. It's a space world. Being honest, I do like the theming in this level. I like the way the breakable chests look, and the enemies are fun, but there's not a whole lot to mention here. Decent visuals and music, but that's about it. Oh yeah, the soundtrack for this game is pretty alright. Not amazing, but it's not a bad listen. It was composed by Tommy Tallarico, who you may remember as the composer for Spider-Man PS1. He's also the guy who shat on Sonic Heroes soundtrack, but then later went on to do music for Sonic and the Black Knight a few years later. Funny how that works. Back to the game. The boss fight for this world is interesting, but pretty difficult. You're battling King Galaxian, so you're on a UFO shooting enemies and dodging obstacles. It's an irritating boss at first, but I do think this boss is really clever and kind of fun. We basically get to play some Galaxian in a Pac-Man game, and people said Infinity War was the most ambitious crossover. World 4, a circus. I like this world. There's a lot of fun platforming segments. There's these spinning platforms that you gotta time your jumps on, and they're so outlandish and twisty-turny, really fitting the circus setting. This is also the level where I noticed that when you kill enemies and solve puzzles but end up dying, once you respawn, you won't have to kill the enemies again and or solve the puzzle you just solved. So yeah, dying can save your progress during levels. That's a nice oversight. Well, when you get a game over, you do have to restart the whole level, but that should be pretty obvious. I like how the boss level here is just a race against clowns and bumper cars. That's fun. World 5, a factory type world. The first two levels are pretty standard stuff, but the third level adds these fun little platforms that are floating in the air. I love the way these look, it's pretty cool, but then the level throws you into this boringly long maze. This is probably the worst level in the game, or maybe at least the second worst behind the mummy boss fight. It's slow, tedious, and boring. The boss is alright. It's a robot that you gotta push buttons down as Metal Pac-Man to knock some stuff on top of him. A bit repetitive, but it's not terrible. World 6, the final world. And it's a haunted mansion level! Ooh! This world's alright. Just standard platforming and such. There are these slopes that I think they expected the player to use the dash attack to travel up, but you can break all the slopes by just spamming the bounce attack. And that just makes these levels too easy. Aesthetically, this is probably my second favorite world, right behind the space world. But there's not much else to really say after that. The final boss is locked. What? Oh wait, there's another thing you have to look out for in every world, which is saving all of Pac-Man's friends. In levels, you gotta find a key, and you must use said key to unlock and save all of Pac-Man's friends from cages. The keys are usually put in areas where you shouldn't miss them, but a few keys are pretty tricky to get. You also have to save all of Pac-Man's friends in order to access the final boss. So be on the lookout for keys and characters in cages to save if you're ever gonna play this game. This is really tedious and halted my progression for quite a while. I did have to look up a few playthroughs to get past this part. So yeah, be sure to save Pac-Man's friends. After you save all 6 of Pac-Man's friends, you can fight the final boss, Talkman. This is probably the best boss in the game, mainly because you have to utilize all your moves against Talkman in order to beat him. This even includes using your power pellet bullets, which I didn't even use in the whole game. Still, it's nice to see that they tried putting some effort into making this final boss more unique compared to the earlier bosses. After you defeat him, we get a cutscene that shows Talkman was being operated by a ghost all along. Afterwards, the funniest ending ever happens.
Nobody loves a ghost!
Jesus fucking Christ, Pac-Man! What an ending, oh my god. I was not expecting the ending to get all dark out of nowhere, but I kinda like it. After beating the game, there's not much else to really do. We do have extra options, like an option to access any of the Galaxian mazes you can find in levels. I already said I'm not a fan of these levels, but I guess it's there for those who enjoy them. So there you go. Then there's Classic Mode, which is Pac-Man. Yep, it's just classic Pac-Man. Of course, this was the 20th anniversary game, so this was expected to be included. I am not a pro at this game, but I'm still happy Namco put this on the disc. It's really sweet. And that was Pac-Man World. All in all, it's alright. It's a pretty standard 3D PS1 platformer. It doesn't try anything new to reinvent the genre. It's not some amazing gaming experience or anything like that. It's just alright. It's like 4 hours long, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. I recommend checking it out if you have a PS3 or PS Vita since it's like $6 on PlayStation Network. Or hey, get it on PlayStation 1 if you want an authentic experience. Play it if you were at all interested. So Pac-Man World was a pretty decent success. It sold alright and got some solid reviews. Afterwards, we entered the new millennium, the early 2000s. We were in the 6th generation of gaming consoles. The Juggernaut PS2, the newbie Xbox Original, and the heavily underappreciated GameCube. Oh yeah, we also had the Dreamcast, but that thing was dead before it even had a chance. So with all this brand new hardware coming in and revolutionizing the gaming industry, Namco came down from the heavens and asked the world if they wanted a sequel to Pac-Man World. To which the world replied, okay. And so we got our sequel. Here's Pac-Man World 2. My copy's actually a double pack with another Pac-Man game, Pac-Man Versus, a multiplayer-only game designed by Shigeru Miyamoto himself, which is pretty neat. I can't show it off, but still a pretty cool combo pack to see. It comes in a double case, which is pretty rare to see from most GameCube games, probably most famously used for Resident Evil 4. Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes is another example. Well, first thing to note about this game, it has no progressive scan option. What's progressive scan? It's an option for most GameCube games to get them to run in 480p, as opposed to 480i. If you played GameCube games on the Wii, then you might recognize this option. So I'm gonna have to force the game into 480p using Eon Gaming's GC-HD Mark II, an HDMI and analog output adapter, which I think makes every GameCube game look the absolute best they ever could. If you have an early model GameCube with the digital output port, get the GC-HD Mark II if you can afford it. I think it's worth it. Thanks to the GC-HD Mark II, I can force the game from 480i to 480p using the built-in line doubler, which I think also reduces input lag. So, that issue is fixed, but I have another one to bring up. For whatever reason, this game doesn't come with a widescreen option. That's really weird since the first game tried to have one, and that was on the PS1. So why didn't Namco let this later generation console game also have a widescreen option? That's kinda weird. Alright, I'm done complaining. So, let's start this game up. Did Danny Elfman compose this? So the plot of Pac-Man World 2 is that Satan is basically set loose. Okay, it's not actually Satan. His real name is Spooky. Really dumb name. Also, it kinda sounds like a slur, so I'm gonna stick to calling him Satan. We also get a bit more of the Pac-Man lore. There's golden fruit that the ghosts end up stealing, which results in Satan getting released. Then Pac-Man gets a rundown of the mythological history of his people thanks to Professor Pac-Man, like how there were Pac-Man wizards and Pac-Man knights. Yeah. So pretty much, Pac-Man has to go on another adventure to get all the gold fruits back, and seal Satan back in the underworld. We then move on to the game. By the way, I'm glad I chose the GameCube version because look how fast these loading screens are. Holy shit. We're presented to a pretty solid first level. It's an actual open world, and it helps you with learning the controls and what movesets you have. You can run around collecting Pac Dots and fruits, then we get to see a new gimmick, the fruit chests. Find a certain fruit, and it can open a fruit box. Nice. The two main returning moves from the first game are the bounce attack and the dash. The bounce still functions really great, and the dash move is just about the same, only now the camera is pulled back behind Pac-Man so you can get a better view on where you're gonna be launched. The camera system is actually pretty decent. There are some sections in levels where the camera is fixed and you can't move it, but most of the time, you can rotate the camera by using the right analog stick. I always found it odd to hear how critics at the time found the camera system to be intrusive for them, but I personally never had an issue with it. How the hell were people playing this game? Ah, damn it, why is this camera so annoying? God! The graphics are pretty decent, very standard environments, but it still looks pretty good. I like a lot of the simple graphic effects, like how Pac-Man gets all wet after jumping in water. I love seeing Pac-Man wet. Wait. So after the first level, we're brought to the map screen. I gotta say, this is a pretty solid map. Very cool. The first world is pretty much a grass world. A good introduction. Again, the worlds in this game are pretty standard and generic. There are these Namco coins you can collect. They can be used for an arcade section in the first level, which I'll talk about later. There are also these Pac aerial type trails that you can use to collect more Pac Dots and sometimes fruit. We also have the Galaxians, which still transport you to mazes. I still don't like these, but at the very least, they have their own separate lives instead of using your regular ones. And I'm pretty sure every maze in the game is optional unless you're going for 100%. So yeah, the mazes are definitely much better in this game. There are once again power pellet sections to give us some classic Pac-Man fun in full 3D again. Oh yeah, remember how even if you died in the first game it still saved your progress? Well, they fixed that in this game, which is disappointing. But oh well, that was bound to get fixed at some point. Let's move on to the first boss, which is a frog robot, and it's pretty easy. Yeah, all the bosses in this game are pretty easy. For this boss, you have to wait until its tongue comes out, then you bounce on it, and later have to dash in its mouth. Oh, and every time you beat a boss, you get one of the gold fruits. Neat. World 2 is a tree world of sorts. This is also where we use the returning metal Pac-Man power-up, and we use it a lot here. He still makes you invulnerable and lets you run underwater. Cool. Though, this level is also where I found out this game has a very annoying inclusion. Fall damage. I do not like this in my 3D platformers. I can easily do without it. I guess one thing I'll mention is the soundtrack. It's pretty average stuff, but I'm sure if I grew up playing this game, I would be way more attached to its soundtrack. I recommend giving it a listen. Actually, the full soundtrack was uploaded to SoundCloud by the composer of the game, which is pretty cool. I'll put a link to it in the description. Anyways, the second boss fight is with Inky, and he's in a giant robot. Get used to this robot, by the way. Every other fight with the ghost is gonna keep reusing it. You just gotta dash off a hill right at the robot and keep damaging it until it's dead. It's not a terrible concept for a boss, but seeing how they use it multiple times, it just gets repetitive. Though one thing to mention, whenever you beat a boss, you're asked if you want to save the game, and it's always hovering over the no option as a default. Why do games do this? I often mash the A button just to get through the menus and cutscene dialogues, only to end up accidentally pressing no when I actually wanted to save. A little annoying design choice. Moving on, the third world is a snowland. Again, pretty simple themes in this game. It's also home to the one thing in this game that I'm sure would have given me multiple nightmares if I played this when I was younger. These freaky ass goat enemies. What do? They wind up like Sonic the Hedgehog and dash their way towards you. The sound they make is so terrifying, and seeing them zoom right up to you is so damn scary. God, I hate these goats. Another thing I hate are the ice physics. It's not fun and it's insanely annoying. I lost so many lives on these parts. But you know what's one thing I do like about this world? This awesome skating level. Oh my god, this is so fun. And it kind of makes me wish almost every world had a skating level. It controls so well and it's so exhilarating to play. I love this shit. It's a bit too short, but I still really love replaying this level. The boss in this world is Pinky, using the same robots. Fun. World 4 is a volcanic level, and I hate this world. And it's easily the most difficult world in the game. I loathe the level Volcanic Panic. At these certain jumps, using the dash move here is so unpredictable. I ended up getting so many game overs because of this level. Well, at the very least, we can use Metal Pac-Man to run over lava. That's something, I guess. The fourth boss is Clyde, using the same damn robot. Except now it's tossing buzzsaws and it's admittedly pretty difficult. So yeah, same boss, just slightly harder. Let's dive right into World 5. Get it? Cause now we're underwater? Okay, I'll sit down. I gotta admit, I seriously love the atmosphere in this world. It's so beautiful at points, and the music seriously complements these levels super well. By the third level, we get to use this Pac-Marine, a Pac-Man submarine pretty much, where you can shoot enemies and other things. This level ain't too bad. The Pac-Marine is also used in the boss fight, which is kinda difficult. It's pretty annoying. But this is one of the last worlds, so the difficulty here does make a little sense. Plus, at least it's not the same robot boss fight again. World 6 is a haunted world, apparently repeating the last theme of the last world from the first game. Oh my god, it starts out with a skating level. Wow, this is awesome. And I'd probably say this was way more fun than the snow skating level. It just feels like a bit more of a challenge. And the rest of the world is alright. The second level is a pretty standard platforming one, but the third level is this massive maze you have to figure out. Okay, this wouldn't be so bad, but something you may immediately notice about this level is that it is dark. It is so damn dark. and it makes it so difficult to see where you're walking. And the water is instant kill, so don't be surprised if you end up walking off or missing a platform you can't see too well. It's so bad that I had to end up turning up the brightness on my TV just so I could finish the level. Jesus. But that was the final level, which means we're about to face the final boss of the game, Satan himself. Pac-Man absorbs the power of all the golden fruits and becomes an unstoppable, metallic, yellow Pac-Man, to which he heads off to fight Satan. And it's painfully easy. Yeah, a bit of an underwhelming final boss. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that whenever you damage a boss enough, you get a short dialogue of them taunting Pac-Man. The thing is, these mini text boxes function as checkpoints. So if you die in the middle of a boss fight, it'll reset you back to the last text box you saw from the boss, and you can continue from where you left off. This makes every single boss fight even more immensely easy. And yes, it happens during the final boss too. What a joke. This game is too easy. We never see him again. He doesn't come back in World 3. So, he's dead. Wait, I just noticed something. Where's Miss Pac-Man? She's not in the story at all. Huh. That's a little odd. And that was Pac-Man World 2's story mode, but the game does have some extras worth checking out too. Back in the very first level, you can access an arcade in one of the houses in the Pac Village, and you can play all sorts of classic Pac-Man games, which is really cool. You can unlock more games by collecting a ton of Namco coins, so definitely be on the lookout for these. Hey look, there's Miss Pac-Man, and she's expensive as shit. Welp. And that was pretty much Pac-Man World 2. As a whole, it's pretty good. It's not an amazing platformer, but it's worth checking out for the decent amount of content it offers. I like the graphics, I like the music, the controls are pretty tight, though there are some things in levels that do annoy me a bit. Pac-Man World 2 is easily, spoiler alert, the best in the trilogy. Basically, it's the Empire Strikes Back of Pac-Man games. So check this game out if it interested you. Especially try 100%ing the game to get all the arcade games. Hell, the game even has that awesomely titled Pac Attack game which I managed to unlock. Hell yes. Let's check this badass game out. It's just a variation of Tetris. Let's move on to the next game. Jesus, why is this title screen so dramatic? What happened to the bouncy music? Also, these first few menus are giving me Ed and Eddie Misadventures flashbacks. So, Pac-Man World 3, released in 2005 for the series' 25th anniversary. First thing to note about this game is that there's no progressive scan option. Well, back to using the line doubler. But hey, they did bring back one pretty big feature. The game has a widescreen option. It's not perfect, however. FMVs and menus end up being stretched. Whatever, at least the option's there. So, the game opens up with a cutscene, and one of the most controversial things ever happens in this intro. Cover your eyes, kids. Get ready to be completely offended in 3, 2, 1. Yep. For the first time ever, Pac-Man has been given an actual voice in the games. This was an idea that almost appeared in the first game, until Namco scrapped it because they couldn't find a good voice for him. But in Pac-Man World 3, he's being voiced by a guy named Martin T. Sherman. A lot of fans were outraged that Namco let Pac-Man talk, and it really split the reception of this game as a result.
Did someone say cake?
Aha, monsters, check! These are the guys that smell so bad, huh?
Right now, I'm just trying to get rid of some spectral siphons and to stop this realm collapsing around our ears.
Of course, with me being the designated guy who complains about voice acting in games, what do I think about this controversial voice for such an iconic video game character? He's alright. Honestly, I don't really see what made people so mad. Like, it's Pac-Man. How do you think he'd sound? Yeah, I don't mind the voice. It's decent. Though I will say, it is a very odd choice to have Pac-Man be mute in the first 2 games, then suddenly give him a speaking role in the 3rd game. What the hell happened between Pac-Man Worlds 2 and 3 where Pac-Man suddenly learned how to talk? Who knows? Who cares? Back to the plot, it's Pac-Man's 25th anniversary, to which Pac-Man starts being teleported everywhere.
Don't panic! Everything's under control. I don't think it'll happen.
Oh well, at least this birthday's still better than my 20th.
What the hell was that? Such a random jab at the first game. Anyways, Pac-Man was being teleported away by a ghost named Orson, who needs Pac-Man's help with saving the world. It appears a bad guy named Irwin, good fucking villain name, who, and I quote from Wikipedia, has created a siphon that can penetrate into the spectral realm. What the fuck does that mean? Those sound like made-up words. Oh, by the way, I hate Irwin. He's a lame, forgettable, horrendously designed villain, and I just want to get to the end of the game and kill him already. Also, what was with the mid-2000s and wanting to insert alien-looking characters in famous platformer series is?
Yes, Chris.
Why do they look like this?
Because there was a weird period during that time where it was like, oh, let's take classic platformers and put really ugly sci-fi characters in them.
Yeah. It looks like Animaniacs or something.
Name another one, Julian.
They did it to the Pac-Man World series.
So, World 1, I guess? I'm using the Pac-Man wiki to find out what these levels' names were, because these worlds are so bland and boring I kept forgetting. This is Bot Boneyard, an alright introduction level where we learn all the basic moves for Pac-Man. However, we also learn one of the most devastating moves ever put into a Pac-Man game. Cover your ears, children. Be ready in 3, 2, 1. Yep, Pac-Man has a punch move. A first for this series, and plenty of people were not a fan of this. Though, being honest, Pac-Man has boxing gloves, so are you really surprised that Pac-Man can punch things now? Honestly, I'm surprised that this wasn't in the first game. It just seemed like an obvious attack for Pac-Man to have in 3D. Even Mario could punch when he made the jump to 3D. So yeah, I don't mind it. I don't see all the hate. Obviously, the punch is used for fighting enemies. And this actually leads to one of the biggest issues with this game. Repetition. Every single level, you are mashing the punch button over and over again in groups of enemies. It gets so boring and dull. I know I said I didn't mind the punch, but that's almost all you have. And you fight enemies super often. You can bounce and dash like in the first 2 games, but there are enemies later on that can't be beaten by the bounce or even the dash, so you're forced to use the punch. I really don't like these parts of the game. They drag so much and it's just not fun after a while. One new thing introduced in this game are these save machines, which you use to save, obviously. They're pretty useful. I like these. Pac-Man can also wall jump now, and it actually works really well. Oh look, the fruits are full 3D models instead of 2D sprites. Cool. There are still Pac-Dot areas where you have to chase, not ghosts, but spectral monsters? Okay? Being honest, one of the only reasons I kept playing this game was because of the dialogue exchanges between Pac-Man and Orson the Ghost. The voice acting and writing are both surprisingly good, and at points, genuinely funny. It's like watching Roger Craig Smith's Sonic, but instead of wanting to put a power drill through my head, it's actually pretty entertaining.
Whoa! Of all the ghostly things I ever ate, those are the least pleasant. I need a mint.
The Galaxian mazes were brought back. Cool. Eventually, I ran into a few dash puzzles, and this is where I noticed the dash is pretty useful and controls really well. I'm glad they fixed this issue from World 2 because that was seriously irritating. Oh, I'm at the end of the level? What? No boss fight or anything? Yeah, spoilers, there's only 2 boss fights in this game. So, What the? High scores? Obviously that was in classic Pac-Man games, but those were made for the arcades and this is a home console game. Well, better bust out the GameCube modem adapter and upload this shit to GCN Live. I know, JonTron did a joke like that 8 years ago, so whatever. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Shit, that video's 8 years old? World 2, Banny Wastelands. This is where we get to use a new ability called the Loom Power Pellet, which allows you to create these trails and to circle enemies to instantly kill them. I love this thing. I like the noise it makes, and it also makes Pac-Man run slightly faster. It feels cool. Hey look, Pac-Man can climb. Plus, the Pac Trails return, though now you'll have to find a colored crystal to activate them, which is a pretty interesting spin on this mechanic. At the end of the level, we meet Orson face to face, who's apparently building a new Talkman. This time, however, Talkman is a mech that you can control for a little bit, but this is just sort of a training mode, so I'm just gonna assume we'll come back to use it later. Sure hope it's not boring. World 3, Spectral Cliffs. This level is purple. Nice. This is one of the best levels to use the dash on slopes. It just controls so well on slopes, which is such a nice improvement. There's also these little puzzles where you gotta hop through these keys to activate a new pathway in the level. It's alright, though the camera did get stuck on a few obstructions, so that wasn't too fun. This level is also where the spectral ghosts really start getting repetitive. It's not designed like you only get to see them once per level, but you encounter them multiple times in the same level. How about you come up with more ideas, Namco? Hey, the bounce pads are back. Yay! There's also these reappearing platforms, which is a fun idea. So at the end of the level, you save Pinky the Ghost, which is pretty epic. World 4, Gogeka Central? What the fuck is a Gogeka? Hey, it's a second desert level. Great. Let's go the other way. What's over here? Oh, it's an invisible wall. Okay then. In this level, we use Pinky to create platforms to help Pac-Man in a few mazes. It's a really cool mechanic. I think this concept is pretty interesting. I think it would have been really cool to see Pac-Man use all the Ghost's abilities in this game, but no, we only get 2 of them. The second one I'll get to later. I really love how Pac-Man is meditating as you're controlling Pinky. That's cute. We also get 2 more power pellets in this level. A power stomp and a shock pellet. The shock pellet can let you electrocute enemies, and the power stomp does, what do you think? Remember when you had to go out of your way to activate checkpoints in the last 2 games? That doesn't really happen here. The checkpoints just kinda create themselves in random points of the levels, so they're very lenient. It works, but I did find it kinda weird that they just got rid of the regular checkpoints from the first 2 games. At the end of the level, Orson tells Pac-Man that he has a new machine for him to use, which he describes as,
how about we try something a little more exciting? Get ready for Virtual Pac-Man! Waka waka!
They're mazes. Regular Pac-Man mazes. That, unlike the Galaxian mazes, are mandatory. I don't have fun with these because I'm just garbage at regular Pac-Man. Thankfully, these mazes don't last too long at least. I still don't like them though. So that was that level. World 5, Spectral Veil. What is with these names? Hey, this looks just like the previous level but with a slightly different color. Okay, this is another major issue with this game. Every level looks the damn same. Seriously, every level just blends in together. Who in the art team thought this would be a good idea? This ends up making the game drag on tremendously. It's so exhausting. This game is already draining me. And we're not even halfway done! The graphics are so bland. The game can barely keep a stable 60 frames a second, and the music is pretty much non-existent. You're probably wondering, how's the soundtrack? What soundtrack? This game barely has one. The last 2 games had decent soundtracks. Sometimes they even had some catchy, memorable songs. But Pac-Man World 3 has this. Where's the music? I usually try to use music from each respective game as background noise, but for this game, I might have to keep alternating between the first and second Pac-Man worlds, since I can barely find anything from Pac-Man World 3's soundtrack. Back to the level, I guess. We come across these blinking platforms. These are cool. That's all I've got to say about them. At the end of this level, we save Clyde, who is really grateful to have his life saved, clearly.
Alright, that's it. I don't need rescuing. Nope, leave me here. I'll take dignity over freedom any day.
Wow, they really gave him that kind of accent. Just like Pinky, we can actually control Clyde in certain areas and levels, and Clyde can blast other enemies. He can also create platforms using various level structures by exploding. Cool. Also, I died during a camera shift. That's epic. At least we still have some fun dialogue in this game.
If you can knock something suitably large into the vortex, it should knock it out completely.
Sounds like when Miss Pac sucks up one of my power pellets in the vacuum cleaner.
What the fuck did you just say? World 6. Zepro Height. That's not even a real word! Well, at least this level looks decent. I mean, it still looks the same as the other levels, but at least it's not too boring to look at. This is admittedly one of the better levels in the game. I like that you can ignore enemies and just rush through the levels most of the time. I also love the ghost town aesthetic here. That's about it. There's also a lot of waiting in this level. You end up doing a few puzzles where, after finishing them, it just requires waiting a while for platforms to appear. There is a maze midway through the level. I hated that. Why did I call this one of the better levels? Was I losing my mind while taking notes? Hey, it's Metal Pac-Man! Why did it take 6 levels into the game to see a gimmick that appeared in the first levels of the last 2 games? Later on, you encounter these scorpion enemies that are annoying, but to be honest, I kind of feel bad whenever I beat them up. They just seem so defenseless, and it takes forever to beat them up. You just slowly watch them suffer until they explode. It's so sad. What I don't feel bad about is that we get a boss fight with Irwin, where we get to beat the crap out of him. Yay, more of this, please. Actually, this is the first of 2 bosses, and we don't fight Irwin again until the very end. To describe this first boss, I can come up with one simple exclamation. It's easy. World 7. Ancient Catacombs. Uh-oh, we're going under Paris now? No, but this level is pretty dull looking. The actual catacombs look more appealing. I like how this one character you talk to gets cut off by the borders, but I'm gonna assume this is only because I'm playing in widescreen mode. Still funny though. This level is also where I really start to get bored just punching enemies over and over and over and over and over and over and over. There's this boring puzzle that you gotta go through that takes forever to figure out, and then you finally get out of the catacombs, only to fight more enemies and you have to do another maze to end the level. Not much else to say here. World 8. Gogeka Heights. Well, everything's on fire now! What the hell happened here? There's a Pinky segment where you gotta activate some platforms, and that's all I can remember.
Pac-Man, the ticking. You can hear the ticking now, right?
Must be in your head, Horse. I can only hear a sort of high-pitched ringing noise with muffled explosions behind it.
How is Pac-Man talking while eating? This level does have a memorable ending where you gotta disable a bomb from going off. It's kinda tense and stuff. Oh, by the way, this is the halfway point of the game. World 9, Banny Canyon. Hey, I recognize these textures. They look just like the ones in this level too. Wow. Gotta really praise the variety. This level's boring. There's a segment where you get to play as Clyde again, and you gotta just kill enemies and activate more switches to get through a puzzle. The dialogue is once again way better and more interesting than the actual level. Apparently, Pac-Man fought off an entire army at some point? What the heck? That's some interesting Pac lore. Is that gonna be mentioned in the Pac Bible? This level did make me realize something weird about this game. The Y button does nothing. Like, at all. Poor Y button. Also, the level just randomly ends. I'm not complaining. World 10. Sorta. Talkman Battle. Ugh. This level is lame. and controlling the new Tuckman is not very invigorating. What also makes this level kinda dull is that it's so easy, and it's really short. It ends after like 3 to 4 minutes. This was such filler. But whatever, it wasn't fun, so thank God. Shortest level ever. World 11, Crackston Bridge. Oh, it's just the green level from earlier again. Were they on a lower budget for this game or something? These annoying as hell shooting robots are really difficult to get rid of. I hate them. God. Oh boy, it's another unskippable maze! Yay! There's also a lengthy puzzle in this level that lasts way too long with some really tight jumps. Come on, come on. Damn it! Okay, what the? How'd you get from there to here? So that was that level. World 12, Irwin's Fortress. This is a technology-themed level with some weird techno sound effects. There's not too much else to say about this level. You play as Pinky one time, and there's this really obnoxious laser platforming segment, but that's about it. World 13, Dungeon Gundam. Well, this is one dark and edgy looking level. Oh my god, what are these poles? What the hell? Why are there so many puzzles during the swinging parts? Crash Bandicoot much? Oh, we get to use Pinky and Clyde here. Alright.
I like your style, Pac-Man. You're not too far away from the inner compound now and the spectral siphon.
There's just one thing I don't understand, Orson.
I'm sure there are many things you don't understand, Pac-Man.
Wow, fuck you, Orson. Look, it's a maze! Oh, thank God! We won! I mean, I guess, but this isn't the end of the game, Pac-Man. World 14, Spectral Zenith. Oh boy, purple level. Again. My favorite. I hate this ramp. Fuck this ramp. Good ramp. Such a good ramp. So great. There are these multi-floor segments. Alright. A ghost chase. So fun. I love doing these over and over and over and over. Oh dude, hell yeah. I love not knowing where I'm supposed to be going. Clyde says Brooklyn things in his Brooklyn accent or whatever. Then we do a thing and the level is over. World 15, Shadow Temple. What a epic title for the final level. You beat up more enemies here. Great. Good final level. This leads us to the final boss, which is also the second boss. And it's the exact same as the first boss fight, except you're smashing 4 crystals instead of just 3. What great fucking variety. So Pac-Man kills Irwin. Yay. After that, we get a pretty funny final cutscene.
What's for dinner?
You are.
You heard the lady. I believe now's the part where you run.
Oh, come on, Munchie. You don't want to eat me. But think of all we've been through together. Okay, bad example.
Why are the end credits so dramatic? And that was the main game. There's not much else to comment on. You can play for high scores, I guess. You can replay the maze levels if you enjoyed them. So despite what I personally think of them, I do think that returning option is still pretty cool. The biggest extra in this game is the museum. You can unlock these 25th anniversary cards that include various images and concept art. There's an arcade cabinet for the original Pac-Man because obviously we needed this. This is the 25th anniversary game after all. We also get a pretty cool interview with the creator of Pac-Man himself, Toru Iwatani. This is easily the coolest extra in the game. I highly recommend checking out this interview. I'm sure someone ripped it from the game and put it online somewhere. While I think World 2 had a better supply of extras, it's still really cool that World 3 had this interview included. It's even mentioned on the back of the game. And that was Pac-Man World 3. Quite frankly, this was the weakest game in the trilogy. It's really repetitive, super boring at points. It's also 6.5 hours long, so I really can't recommend this one too easily. I think the best part of this game are the cutscenes and dialogue. I'd recommend just looking up a compilation of every cutscene in this game, since they're very entertaining, and I think the voice acting is all around pretty underrated. Aside from that, the levels and gameplay are both pretty dull, the graphics are super stale, the music is practically not even there, and it's kind of forgettable as an actual game. It's not terrible, but it is underwhelming and very time-consuming to play through. Of the whole trilogy, I recommend playing this one last. Play it if you enjoyed the first two games, and if you really want to see what the third game is like. It starts out kinda good, but it slowly heads downhill. That's gonna be a yikes from me, dude. And that was the Pac-Man World trilogy. All in all, they're a decent set of games, but with varying qualities. If I had to rate them from favorite to least favorite, it would probably go 2, 1, then 3. I do recommend checking out these games in any way you guys can. I think they're a nice little part of gaming history when the OG game icon Pac-Man was brought into 3D. The late 90s to early 2000s were a very unique time for video games, and I do think these three should not be forgotten. Now, should there be a Pac-Man World 4? I don't know. That honestly sounds like a fan game that hasn't been made yet, though I do realize upon saying that, someone might try to go ahead and make that. Oh boy. Still, I think an official World 4 would be pretty interesting. I don't mean to sound like that guy, but maybe go back to basics and make it more like what World 2 was doing. Drop all the boring weird shit from World 3, and make it just a simple 3D platformer. It'd be nice to see. Who knows if it'll happen though. And that was that. I'm not really too sure how to end this video, but, I like Pac-Man and all, but Pac Attack was extremely disappointing after seeing the title. I'm sorry. By the way, the script for this video was finished like a year ago. Yeah, I didn't start recording audio commentary for this review until like May, and I sort of put it off for the rest of the year. And so finally I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna finish recording audio and everything. Because obviously all the gameplay footage was recorded ahead of time, and the script was finished and everything, so yeah, hope you enjoyed this kinda overdue Pac-Man World video. When I initially wrote the script, I had just started getting into Scott the Woz, so I wanted this to kind of be a Scott the Woz parody of sorts, but I don't know, I think like a few months after finishing the script, I decided to just drop all the Scott the Woz sort of references and whatever. I had a few live action bits I was gonna put in, but I decided to just scrap because I just want to get this review out finally. Like I was gonna do an intro bit where I go, hey y'all, Cooper here, but I don't know, I didn't think it was funny anymore, so I scrapped it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching my very long Pac-Man World trilogy review. It was very interesting finally getting a chance to play these games, and yeah, links to my social medias are in the description. If you want to support me financially, my Ko-fi and Patreon are linked there too. That's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching. And yeah.